The test that broke her. The sky above the Zorak city was not blue. It glowed silver, lit by strange moons and shining towers. The people of Zorak stood silently around a great glowing platform. On that platform stood a young alien girl named Lara. She was small for her age, with soft blue skin and bright golden eyes. She looked brave on the outside, but inside, her heart was shaking. Today was the day of the purity test. Every young Zorak must pass the test. If they failed, they were called impure. And the impure were not allowed to live free. Some were sent to the mines. Others were never seen again. Lyra knew all this. She had trained hard, studied long, and kept her body clean and strong. But now that she stood before the test, something felt wrong. "Step forward," said the voice of the high examiner. He wore black robes and a cold face. Lyra stepped onto a glass circle. It glowed under her feet. The machine behind her made a humming sound. Lights blinked. The test had begun. She could hear whispers from the crowd. "She's the daughter of 2 strong bloodlines. She will pass for sure. She's pure, look at her posture." But Lyra's ears could also hear doubt. Doubt in her own mind. She remembered the sickness she had as a child. No one spoke of it, but she remembered. She had been weak. Was that still inside her? The humming grew louder. The glass beneath her feet turned red for a moment. Then the machine stopped. The loud beep echoed through the air. The lights on the tower behind her turned black. Everyone gasped. "No, it must be wrong," someone in the crowd whispered. But it was not wrong. The screen above her head showed one word in glowing letters: impure. Lyra froze. Her legs felt heavy. Her mouth went dry. Her body would not move. Then the soldiers came. 2 Zorak guards in silver armor grabbed her arms. She wanted to scream. She wanted to say it was a mistake. But no words came out. The high examiner raised his hand. "Lyra of House Evil," he said, "you have failed the purity test. You are no longer one of us." The crowd turned silent. Even her own friends stepped back. Even her parents looked away. Lyra was dragged off the platform. Tears filled her eyes, but she would not let them fall. She was not weak. She was not broken. But in the eyes of her people, she was no longer a person. Far above, in a private viewing room, a tall human man stood behind a glass wall. He had seen the whole thing. His name was Elias Stone, a warrior from Earth. He had fought in the human Zorak wars, and now served as an advisor to the Zorak Council. But Elias did not clap or cheer like the others. He watched Lyra as the guards took her away. And he frowned. In a cold, silent chamber deep below the city, Lyra sat alone. The room had no windows, no doors, only light that came from the walls themselves. There was a soft humming noise in the background, like the sound of machines breathing. She touched her face. No bruises, no pain. But inside, she felt hollow. Why did she fail? What made her impure? Suddenly, the door she could not see opened. A man stepped in. Not Zorak, a human. Elias. Lyra stood up fast. "What do you want?" she asked. Her voice was sharp. "I came to speak with you," Elias said calmly. "You were watching," she said. "You saw them break me." "I saw a test," he replied, "but I also saw something else. I saw a girl who did not cry, a girl who stood tall when the world turned away from her." Lyra narrowed her eyes. "Do not pretend to care." Elias looked at her for a long moment. "I don't pretend," he said. "I ask questions, and something about your test result doesn't make sense." "What are you talking about?" He turned to leave but paused at the door. "I've seen many like you," Elias said. "And not all of them were impure. Some were different, special." Then he left, and the wall closed behind him. Lyra stood in silence. For the first time since the test, a spark of hope touched her chest. Not much, just a little. But sometimes, a small spark can start a great fire. A cage without chains. Lyra woke up to silence. There was no bed beneath her, only smooth, cold metal. The air smelled strange, like chemicals and dust. She sat up slowly, trying to remember where she was. Her body was still sore, but not from wounds. No one had hit her. No one had yelled. But she had been broken all the same. She had failed the purity test. And now she was here, in this strange place. The room had no windows, no furniture. The walls glowed softly, but there were no lights. The corners had no shadows, yet everything felt hidden. Like the room itself was alive. She stood up and walked around. The floor didn't make any sound when she stepped on it. There were no doors, no food, no water, no exit. Yet she wasn't hungry or thirsty. It was like the room was watching her. She punched one of the walls. "Let me out." Nothing happened. Her voice echoed once, then died. She sat back down and hugged her knees. Hours passed, or maybe days. There was no way to know time here. Lyra spoke to herself to stay sane. She hummed old songs. She made patterns on the floor with her fingers. But the silence always returned. She began to think this wasn't a prison. This was a test. Again. Another cruel test. Then suddenly, the wall in front of her melted open. It didn't slide or move. It disappeared like a soft ripple in water. And in walked the last person she expected to see. Elias Stone, the human warrior. He wore black armor with no weapons. His face was calm, unreadable, but his eyes studied everything. "What do you want now?" Lyra asked coldly. "I want to talk," Elias said. "I want to be left alone. Then we both want something we can't have." He sat down across from her, keeping distance. "You're not here to be punished, Lyra," he said quietly. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Oh, really? Then what is this?" "A research cell," Elias said. "Made by the Zorak scientists. They want to study your behavior. I'm not a lab rat. No, you're something they don't understand, and that scares them." Lyra looked away. "Because I failed the test. Or because you broke the test," Elias said. She turned her head sharply. "What do you mean?" "I've seen the test run 1,000 times," Elias explained. "The machine is old, very accurate, but only when it scans what it knows." He leaned forward just a little. "You showed it something it didn't expect." Lyra frowned. "That makes no sense." Elias smiled a little. "Doesn't it? The machine didn't say you were weak or sick. It just said you were different." He reached into his coat and pulled out a small glowing orb. It floated above his palm. "What's that?" Lyra asked. "A scan I took of your DNA while you were unconscious. Don't worry. It's harmless." Lyra narrowed her eyes. "You had no right." "Maybe not, but I had a reason." He tapped the orb. A hologram appeared, lines of glowing strands, twisting and turning. "This is your genetic code," Elias said. "But look here, this pattern. It's not Zorak." Lyra stepped closer, curious despite herself. "What is it then?" Elias looked her in the eyes. "It's human." For a long time, Lyra said nothing. She stared at the hologram. The spinning code meant nothing to her, but the weight of Elias's words pressed on her chest. "That's not possible," she whispered. Elias nodded. "That's what I thought too. I'm Zorak. My parents." "Your parents were Zorak," he said, "but your blood tells a deeper story." He stood up. "I don't know what happened in your past, but I know this. Whatever you are, the Zorak are afraid of it." "Then why are you here?" she asked. "Why talk to me at all?" Elias looked tired, like the question had an old answer. "Because I've seen what the Zorak do to things they fear. I've seen them burn cities, erase whole villages, just because someone was different." He walked toward the wall, which opened for him again like water. Before stepping out, he turned back. "You're not a prisoner, Lyra. You're a secret, and secrets don't stay buried forever." Then the wall closed behind him. That night, or what she guessed was night, Lyra dreamed for the first time in weeks. She saw a forest she didn't know. Green trees, warm sun, a world unlike Zorak. And in the dream, she was not hiding. She was running free. And laughing. The next time Elias came, Lyra was waiting for him. She didn't shout. She didn't argue. She asked him a question. "What do humans dream of?" Elias blinked. Then he smiled, a little surprised. "Strange question. Answer it." He thought for a moment. "Freedom," he said. "We dream of being free, of making our own path, even when it's hard." Lyra nodded slowly. "I want that," she whispered. "You will," Elias said. "But first, we find out who you really are." The warrior's doubt. The stars above Zorak Prime never blinked. They were cold and sharp, like 1,000 silent watchers. Far above the great cities, the moons glowed with soft silver light. Ships passed between them like insects, buzzing with purpose. Inside one of those ships, an old human battleship now turned research station, Elias Stone sat in silence, watching a replay of the purity test. Lyra's face filled the screen again, her eyes full of hope, her body still, the machine behind her humming. Then the screen turned black. Impure. Elias paused the recording. He stared at her frozen face. He had seen many tests in his time as a war advisor. He had watched proud Zorak warriors pass or fail. Most of the failures were silent, unimportant. But this one stayed in his mind, not because of what she did, but because of what she didn't do. She didn't cry, didn't beg, didn't look at her parents or scream for help. She stood like a broken statue, then walked away with her head still high. Zorak society called it defiance. Elias called it strength, and something about it refused to leave him alone. Later that day, Elias walked through a long hallway made of crystal and metal. Zorak engineers had designed the path to twist and curve, so only the pure could walk it without confusion. Elias hated it. Every step echoed in silence until he reached the council chamber, where 5 tall Zorak elders sat on their floating thrones. Their leader, Prime Seer Vekler, had eyes like burning coal. "You have accessed the girl's DNA," Vekler said without emotion. "Yes," Elias replied. "And what did you find?" Elias hesitated. "A mutation." Vekler narrowed his eyes. "Be specific." "She has markers not found in any Zorak genome," Elias said. "At first, I thought it was damage, a flaw. But it's structured, ordered. It looks like ancient human sequences." The chamber fell quiet. Another elder leaned forward. "Impossible. The bloodlines have never mixed." Elias raised an eyebrow. "Never? Or were they just erased from record?" Murmurs stirred. That was a dangerous question. "You overstep," Vekler growled. "I ask questions," Elias replied calmly. "Because the girl is not a mistake. She is something new. Something evolved." Vekler stood. His robe shimmered with symbols of purity and law. "She is a threat," he said. "Her presence weakens the line. The people must not know of this corruption." "Then why keep her alive?" Elias challenged. "Why not end it already?" The room turned cold. Vekler stepped down from his throne. "Because we want to know what else she carries," he said. "We want to see if the impurity spreads, if others like her exist." Elias clenched his jaw. "You mean you want to hunt them?" No one answered. He left the chamber without bowing. That night, Elias watched another recording, not of Lyra, but of himself. Years ago, his unit storming a Zorak bunker. Fires, screams, innocent Zorak children huddled in corners. One of them had eyes like Lyra's. He had turned away from the fire, disobeyed orders. It was that day the war ended for him. He had joined peace talks, became a link between the two species, a bridge. But bridges break under weight, and the truth about Lyra was heavy. Back in her glowing cage, Lyra pressed her hand against the wall. It did not move. She wasn't trying to escape. Not anymore. She was trying to feel something. Every time Elias visited, he brought pieces of the world back in. She was starting to trust him, but she didn't know why. He was human, raised in war. He had killed her kind. But he spoke gently. He listened. He believed her. That was more than anyone else ever had. When he arrived that day, Lyra asked him something strange. "If you could run away from everything," she said, "would you do it?" Elias sat across from her and nodded. "I tried once," he said. "Didn't work." "Why not?" "Because the past has long arms. It always pulls you back." Lyra looked at him, then at her hands. "They think I'm a mistake." "No," Elias said. "They think you're change. And that scares them more." The next day, something happened. A Zorak guard entered the room without warning. He wasn't like the others. He had a red symbol on his chest, meaning enforcer. He didn't speak. He walked straight toward Lyra and raised his hand to strike her. Lyra didn't move. She just stared at him, silent. But before the hit landed, a strange thing happened. A small insect, a soft, glowing moth, flew down from the ceiling. Lyra lifted her hand to protect it. The guard froze. The moth landed on her palm. Lyra whispered something. The guard stepped back, confused, then walked out. Hidden in the corner, a camera recorded everything. Later, Elias watched the footage. He leaned forward, playing it again. Lyra protected a moth. A simple act, but it meant something. The Zorak believed in strength over compassion. They killed weak creatures without thought. For a Zorak, even a failed one, to protect life so small, it was unnatural. It was human. Elias whispered to himself. "She's not failing their tests. She's passing something higher." He turned off the screen. He had made his decision. The council wanted to erase her. But Elias would save her, even if it meant war. The escape that wasn't. The glowing walls began to flicker. Lyra sat cross-legged in the center of the room, eyes closed, breathing slowly. Meditation was something Elias had taught her. When the world breaks you, he had said, learn to breathe like you're building something stronger. But this time, the flickering light wasn't part of her thoughts. It was real. The air changed. A hum grew louder. Then, without warning, the wall across from her ripped open, as if torn by invisible hands. For the first time since she arrived, a true door appeared. Lyra stood up fast. Her heartbeat pounded in her ears. This had to be a mistake, or a trick. The Zorak didn't let prisoners walk free. She stepped forward slowly. The door led into a dark hallway. Metallic, narrow, cold. Something deep in her gut whispered, "Run." So she ran. The hall twisted left, then right, always just narrow enough to feel like a trap. But the lights flickered above her, showing the way. She heard nothing. No footsteps. No guards. Just the echo of her own movements and the strange breathing of machines in the walls. Suddenly, the hallway opened into a large room, an empty docking bay. A small shuttle stood in the center. Lights on. Engines powered. Her eyes widened. This was real. A way out. She sprinted toward the shuttle, her bare feet slapping against the floor. She could almost smell freedom. But then, boom, the lights died. A hard jolt threw her to the ground. The room vanished in darkness. Then bright lights snapped on from all directions, white, hot, blinding. Walls began to shift. The shuttle disappeared. The floor melted, and a voice echoed all around her, cold and full of disgust. Subject 7 has failed the empathy trap. She screamed, not in fear, but in rage. She had been watched, lied to. The escape was never real. It was a simulation, a test inside a prison, a trap inside a trap. From behind a wall of glass, Zorak scientists appeared, dressed in white armor, faces blank. Machines behind them glowed and spun. One of them whispered. She ran for the ship, not for others, only self-preservation. Another nodded. High levels of survival instinct, but no purity. Then the voice of the Prime Seer crackled over the speakers. Reset the chamber, double the illusions, break the spirit. If she hopes, she resists. If she fears, she obeys. Lyra lay on the floor, breathing hard. Her hands shook, but she wasn't broken. Not yet. Elias stormed into the observation room, shoving past the Zorak guards. His voice thundered. You had no right. Veclor turned slowly, calm as always. She needed to be tested. She is not a weapon, Elias growled. She's a person. Then she will either survive as one, Veclor said, or vanish like the others. Elias stepped forward. You said no harm would come to her. And none has, Veclor replied. The body heals. It is the mind we study. Elias clenched his fists. He could feel his old self rising, the soldier who had once crushed enemies with metal fists and fire. But Lyra didn't need a soldier. She needed something stronger. She needed someone who believed in her. Without another word, Elias turned and left. Back in her cell, now reset to normal, Lyra sat in the corner. Her breathing was calm again, but her eyes had changed. She had cried, but the tears dried fast. The pain wasn't what haunted her. It was the hope. They had used hope to hurt her. She didn't know what to trust anymore. When Elias entered, she didn't even look at him. I saw what they did, he said softly. No answer. They think if they can trap your mind, they can control your heart. Still nothing. He sat down on the floor across from her. You don't have to talk. I know, she said at last. But I want to. She looked up. Her eyes were tired, but something still burned behind them. Why do they hate me so much? She asked. Why not just kill me? Because you challenge everything they believe, Elias said. And people in power fear truth more than war. Lyra laughed bitterly. Then maybe I should give them what they want. Maybe I should stop caring. Stop hoping. Elias didn't argue. Instead, he reached into his armor and pulled something out. It was small. A single petal from a flower not found on Zorak. It shimmered blue and green. What's this? She asked. A memory, Elias said. From Earth. My sister gave it to me before the last battle. He handed it to her. She told me, when you forget why you fight, look at this. Lyra took the petal gently. It felt warm in her hand. Soft. Real. I don't know who I am anymore, she whispered. Elias looked her in the eye. Then let's find out together. Later that night, Lyra walked to the center of the room and began to move. Not pacing. Not training. Dancing. Slow and silent. A dance from old stories, one her mother had taught her as a child, back when stories still had heroes and endings. The room watched. But this time, she didn't care. Because this dance wasn't for them. It was for her. In the shadows of the Zorak control tower, Veclor watched the footage again. He turned to his second. She won't break, he said. The second tilted his head. Then what do we do? Veclor's eyes narrowed. We make her choose. Betray the human, or die with him. Secrets in human blood. The human outpost was silent. It floated on the edge of Zorak space, forgotten by most. No ships landed here anymore. No soldiers. No council. Just old dust and older machines. But tonight, lights flickered back to life. Elias stood before a cracked terminal, typing codes he had sworn to forget. Behind him, Lyra watched quietly, her arms crossed, unsure what they were doing. "What is this place?" she asked. "A graveyard," Elias replied, "but one filled with ghosts who still whisper." The terminal beeped. A hologram blinked on, faint at first, then clear. A woman's face appeared. Not human, not Zorak. Something in between. Her eyes were bright like Lyra's. Her skin had a soft glow. She looked familiar. Elias whispered. Her name was Talia. She was a hybrid. The first. Lyra stepped forward. Her hands trembled. "She looks like me." "She should," Elias said, "because you are part of her bloodline." Lyra's world tilted. The hologram began to speak in a soft, calm voice. Log entry 127. Year 3032 Galactic count. If you are seeing this, it means the purity war has begun. It means we failed. She took a breath. But not all is lost. The child we made, the child with both human and Zorak DNA, survived. Her name is Lyra, the first of her kind. She will carry our dreams. The message ended. Silence returned, but not inside Lyra's chest. There, a storm was rising. She looked at Elias. "That's me." "Not her directly," he said, "but her blood flows through you. You are the last of that secret line, hidden for generations, until now." Back on Zorak Prime, the council was in chaos. Lyra's escape to the human outpost had triggered alarms across the upper command. Guards were searching. Ships were scanning sectors, but no one could find her. Vekler sat in the shadows, reading ancient scrolls. Not digital ones. Real, physical scrolls. Texts the Zorak had buried long ago. They told of a time when the Zorak and humans shared something deeper than war. Knowledge, genetic study, even love. But that history had been erased after the purity movement began. Only Vekler had kept the old records. And now he knew the truth. Lyra was no accident. She was proof. Proof that the old laws were lies. Proof that the Zorak were not pure to begin with. At the outpost, Elias worked through the night. He pulled up files, logs, DNA scans, anything to help Lyra understand who she was. "This is why the test failed," he told her. "It tried to scan for Zorak purity. But your DNA has human markers buried deep inside, just enough to confuse the system." "I thought I was sick," she said quietly. "When I was young, I was always tired. My body didn't grow like the others." "That's because your cells were adapting," Elias explained. "You weren't broken, Lyra. You were evolving." She stared at her hands. Human hands. Zorak hands. "Neither. Both." She whispered, "Then why does it feel like I don't belong anywhere?" Elias looked at her, his voice low but strong. "Because you don't. Not yet. But that doesn't mean you can't make a place of your own." Just before dawn, the outpost's long-range sensor lit up. A single message pinged the main terminal. Encrypted. Zorak code. Elias opened it. His eyes went wide. "What is it?" Lyra asked. "They found us." Moments later, the hologram flared again. This time, it wasn't Talia. It was Vekler. Live. His image stood tall in the center of the room, looking down at them like a god. "Hello, Elias." "And hello to you, Lyra." Lyra stepped back. Elias stood protectively in front of her. "You don't belong here," Elias growled. Vekler smiled. "Neither does she." Lyra's fists clenched. "What do you want?" "To offer you a choice," Vekler said. "Return now. Come back willingly. Stand before the people. We will not hurt you." Elias laughed. "You expect us to believe that?" Vekler ignored him. His eyes stayed on Lyra. "You want answers. I will give them. You want freedom. I can promise safety." "But only if I kneel," Lyra said. Vekler's voice softened. "No, only if you accept what you are. Not Zorak. Not human. Just silence. Obedience. Peace." Lyra stepped forward. No. Vekler's smile vanished. I am tired of being told what I am, she said. You can't test me. You can't erase me. I am not your secret anymore. Elias nodded with pride. She doesn't need your acceptance. She will regret this, Vekler warned. No, Lyra said. You will. The hologram vanished, and Elias whispered, It's time. They ran through the halls of the outpost. The systems powered back to life. Weapons hummed. Shields blinked on. Elias handed Lyra a small device. This controls the main gate. If we're overrun, press this. It'll erase everything. Data, DNA, history. Lyra held it tight. But that would destroy proof of who I am. Sometimes the fire must come before the future. Above the planet, Zorak ships closed in. And far below, two fugitives stood ready. One, a broken warrior with a haunted past. The other, a girl born of two worlds, neither pure, but more powerful than either side ever dreamed. War for one life. The sky above the old human outpost was no longer empty. Now it burned. Zorak warships had arrived. 6 vessels shaped like spears hovered in orbit, silent and deadly. Their energy weapons hummed. Shields glowed with power. They had come not to negotiate, but to erase. Inside the outpost, warning sirens screamed through ancient speakers. Red lights pulsed across metal walls. The system AI crackled to life for the first time in decades. Defense mode activated. Hostile forces. DTTTD. Prepare for impact. Elijah Stone grabbed his old rifle and handed a blaster to Lyra. You ever fired one of these? He asked. She looked at the weapon. It felt heavy in her hands, like it didn't belong. Just like her. No, she said honestly. Good, Elias replied. Because I don't want you to shoot anyone unless you have to. That's not why we're here. Then why are we here? Elias paused. Because the truth needs someone to fight for it. The Zorak Council had given one order. Bring her back alive, unless she resists. Aboard the lead ship, Prime Seer Vekler stood in his command chamber, watching the outpost through a wide digital window. She will resist, he said calmly. She's too much like them. His second-in-command nodded. Shall we destroy the station? Not yet. Let the human bleed first. Vekler activated the speaker. His voice boomed through every hallway of the outpost. Lyra, you have one chance. Step outside, unarmed. Surrender yourself, or this place becomes your tomb. Lyra stood by a broken terminal, her breath shaky. Elias looked at her. You don't have to do this. But I do, she whispered. If I run now, it never ends. They'll chase me forever. Hunt others like me. He said nothing. But he didn't stop her. Because he knew. This wasn't about one life anymore. It was about what that life stood for. Lyra walked out through the front gate. The Zorak dropships had already landed. Soldiers formed lines, their armor glowing under Zorak banners. Each one had passed the purity test. Each one saw her as less. A council voice shouted, Kneel. Lyra did not. She held her arms out, showing she carried no weapons. I am not here to fight, she called out. I came to speak. The soldiers didn't move. I know what I am now, she continued. You told me I was broken. A mistake, a virus. But I've seen the records. I've seen the truth. She pointed to the sky. You came from mixing. From unity. You were never pure. You were afraid. A murmur spread through the soldiers. Some glanced at each other. One voice shouted, You lie. Lyra lifted her chin. Then look inside yourselves. Ask why you're afraid of me. Ask why a single girl makes your whole council send a fleet. She turned around slowly. I'm not the threat. Your lies are. Then, chaos. One soldier broke rank. He fired. The energy bolt streaked through the air toward her chest. But it never hit. A wall of glowing energy exploded in front of her, a shield made of light. Lyra stood untouched. The Zorak froze. She hadn't raised a hand. She didn't move. The shield had appeared by itself, as if her blood had called the energy to protect her. Elias, watching through binoculars, whispered, "She's triggering dormant hybrid code." Another blast came. Again, it bounced off the light. Then Lyra raised her hand, and the sky cracked. Not literally. But the wind changed, the clouds shifted. Something ancient stirred inside her. The ground beneath the soldiers trembled. Weapons in their hands began to glow, not with power, but with heat. Painful, unusable. They dropped their rifles. Some fell to their knees. Lyra wasn't angry. She was just awake. Inside the Zorak mothership, alarms screamed. Energy surge detected. Barked the pilot. From the hybrid. Vekler slammed his fist against the console. "She's awakening. Shut it down." "Shut what down?" The AI replied. "The genes," he roared. "Trigger the failsafe." A secret signal was sent. A buried command deep inside Lyra's blood, meant to kill her if she ever activated. But it failed. Because Lyra was not the same as those before her. She had Elias's changes, and Talia's legacy. She was built to survive. The fail-safe melted into static, and Lyra stood strong. Then the skies exploded. The first shot came from the human outpost. Elias had activated the orbital defense cannon. A blast of light struck a Zorak cruiser, tearing through its wing. Zorak ships responded, firing beams into the surface. The outpost shook. Dust filled the air. Elias ran to the control tower, dodging sparks and falling debris. He yelled into the comms, "Lyra, get back inside." "No," her voice came through. Calm. Focused. "I'm not done yet." Lyra raised both hands now. Not to fight. To call. To awaken. The moths came first. Glowing insects, born from the outpost's forgotten gardens, swarmed the battlefield. Not attacking, but surrounding her, like guardians. Then the air shimmered, a projection. From the old tower, an AI activated. Talia's voice echoed once more. "If you are seeing this, it means she has survived." The projection showed history, real history, the secret experiments, the peace talks, the love between human and Zorak leaders, the betrayal by those who feared change. The Zorak soldiers watched in silence. Some dropped to their knees, not out of defeat, but out of understanding. Back in the mothership, Vekler knew he had lost control. His voice shook as he gave the order. "Destroy the station. Kill them all." Elias saw the cannon charging. He grabbed the final fail-safe trigger, the one that would wipe the outpost clean, destroying its knowledge before the Zorak could claim it. He looked at the screen. Lyra stood alone, but not afraid. He smiled. "I told you to run, kid." Then he pressed the button. The outpost exploded in light. A wave of energy rippled across the battlefield, knocking ships from the sky, turning weapons to ash. But from within the explosion, a figure rose, floating, alive. Lyra, protected by a shell of blue light, powered by memory, blood, and choice. She looked to the sky, then at the people, and finally to the Zorak soldiers. "I'm not your past," she said softly. "I'm your future, the new bloodline." The battlefield was silent. Ash floated in the sky like snow. The once proud Zorak warships were scattered, either burning in orbit or drifting powerless through the upper atmosphere. The old human outpost, now a crater surrounded by scorched earth, no longer stood. But from the center of it all, Lyra stood tall. The shimmering light that had protected her slowly faded. She took a deep breath, her body glowing faintly, like the last echo of a star. The wind tugged at her hair, but her eyes remained still, focused, not on the smoke, not on the ships, but on the people. The Zorak soldiers on the ground stared at her in disbelief. They had been raised to believe in purity, taught that anything outside the bloodline was a disease, a curse. But they had seen her. They had seen her shield them, not destroy them. They had watched her spare those who tried to kill her. They had witnessed something their leaders said could never exist. A hybrid, kind, powerful, alive. Far above, inside a damaged mothership, Prime Seer Veclor limped across the command deck. Blood dripped from a wound on his side. The explosion had shaken even the highest ranks. But he didn't care about the pain. He cared about the loss. Not just of power, of control. The soldiers below were listening to Lyra now. Not him. His empire was crumbling. And it was a girl who had never fired a shot who broke it. He stared at her image on the cracked screen. "Enter," he ordered. His second-in-command didn't move. Veclor turned sharply. "Did you not hear me?" "I heard you," the second said quietly. "But I also heard her." The second dropped his rank badge and walked away. Veclor fell to his knees, not from injury, but from the slow, painful truth. His war was over. Lyra stepped forward on the blackened soil. Around her, Zorak soldiers slowly lowered their weapons. Some knelt. Others simply stared. No one moved to attack. She spoke, and her voice carried through the wind. "I was told I was impure, that I was a mistake." She paused. "But if I was born of both worlds, then maybe I am not a mistake. Maybe I'm the bridge you were all afraid to cross." She turned slowly, speaking to everyone. "I'm not here to take your place. I'm here to make space for others like me, those who were hidden, shamed, or forgotten." She pointed to the sky. "You built walls to keep your blood clean, but all you did was shut the light out." Now she raised her hands, showing her bare palms. "No more tests. No more cages. If you want to fight, I won't stop you." She looked them in the eyes. "But if you want to walk forward with me, I'll never leave you behind." Silence followed. Then a single soldier stepped forward. She dropped her helmet, and she knelt. "I have a daughter," the soldier said, her voice breaking. "She failed her test last year. I was told she was sent away. But I know now, she was like you." Lyra nodded. "You won't have to hide her anymore." One by one, the others followed, kneeling, not in worship, but in unity. A week later, Zorak Prime saw something it hadn't seen in centuries. A gathering of every caste, every class, every species across the system. Human, Zorak, and the new hybrids who had been born in secret and hidden in fear. They gathered in the old trial chamber, the same place where Lyra had once been called impure. But this time, she stood at the center, not as a prisoner, but as a leader. The chamber was filled with voices, some afraid, some angry, some hopeful. She raised her hand, and the room fell quiet. "You told me I had no place," she began, "that I was neither Zorak nor human. You were right. But you were also wrong. Because now, I am something new." She looked out over the crowd. "And I'm not alone anymore." Behind her stood dozens of others. Young hybrids, hidden survivors of failed purity tests. Children who had lived in the shadows, now walking proudly in the open. "We are not less," she said. "We are more." After the gathering, as the people left in silence, Elias stood beside her. He had survived the explosion with burns and broken ribs, but he refused to let a single doctor treat him until Lyra was safe. Now wrapped in bandages and leaning on a cane, he looked at her and smiled. "You did it." Lyra smiled back. "No," she said, "we did." He reached into his coat and pulled something small from his pocket. The beetle, still glowing. "You gave this back to me after the battle," she said. "Because you gave me something better," Elias replied. "What?" "A reason to believe again." That night, under the stars, Lyra stood alone outside the old city walls. She looked up. The stars seemed brighter now. She could feel something changing in the air. The world had taken its first breath in a new age. Behind her, footsteps approached. It was the soldier, the mother. "I found my daughter," the woman said, voice full of emotion. "She was in a labor camp. She's safe now." The mother nodded. "And she wants to meet you." Lyra smiled softly. "Tell her. I can't wait." Years later, history would remember that day. Not as a battle, but as the birth of the new bloodline, a movement that ended the age of purity and began the age of unity. Lyra became more than a symbol. She became a teacher, a protector. And when the next generation asked what she was, she always answered the same way. "I'm not Zorak. I'm not human. I'm the space between, where peace begins." And with those words, the galaxy began to heal. The end